Let's go to Allan Lichtman on this, presidential historian at American University and author of The Case for Impeachment. Okay, Allan, you heard what Chuck Schumer had to say. Do you agree that there's no value in an acquittal if you didn't have witnesses at the trial?
Of course, he's 100% right. The rationale for not calling witnesses is absolutely disingenuous. Every prosecutor comes into a trial saying they have overwhelming evidence. That does not mean that you block new emerging eyewitnesses who have direct, relevant testimony. That never happens in a trial. You are never limited to just what is developed in the charging phase of the trial. Now you have John Bolton, who said he's willing to testify if they give him a subpoena. And they're talking about, well, he could be blocked for months by executive privilege. Wrong. He's a private citizen. He's not barred from testifying. We saw 17 witnesses who are current and former Trump administration appointees testifying before the House. And by the way, every time there's a new revelation from John Bolton, it greatly broadens his testimony. He has far more to say than just Donald Trump telling him the aid is conditioned on the investigations. His testimony shows this plot goes on for months before the July 25th call, involves Rudy Giuliani and high officials of the Trump administration.
So, Allan, there were 4 Republican senators at play who were open, at least, to the idea of calling for witnesses and voting that way. Obviously, either they were turned by the Republican arguments or the Democrats making their case. There was a failure in that. Which do you think it was?
Oh, it certainly wasn't a failure of the Democrats making their case. It was pure partisanship. Look how disingenuous Lamar Alexander's argument is. He says, yeah, well, the president did this, but let the public decide at the election. And yet he is blocking information that is relevant and would help the public to decide at the election. He's totally contradicted himself. Moreover, maybe not other senators have made up their mind, and therefore certainly more documents would be relevant.
Okay, so that now we are waiting for the big vote, right? Whether or not he will be found guilty in those 2 articles of impeachment. But in between, likely will be the State of the Union. What's your expectation from Donald Trump on that day?
Donald Trump will not pull a Bill Clinton if he's acquitted, where Bill Clinton apologized, said, yeah, you know, what I did was wrong and I'm sorry about it. Donald Trump will crow that he's been vindicated, that this was all a hoax, and this was all a witch hunt. Donald Trump has never been held accountable for anything in his entire life. Not for breaking the fair housing laws, not for hiring illegal immigrants, not for breaking the Cuban embargo, not for bankruptcies that he walked away from, not from shady real estate deals. Now he's not being held accountable again, and he will be empowered not just to crow about this, but to do everything in his power to cheat in the next election. We know the Russians now have a bright green light to come back, and he is going to welcome and exploit the Russian interference just like he did last time. And my great fear is that the Russians have refined their technique over 4 years, and they may well even try to alter vote tallies. Our democracy is hanging by a Russian sword of Damocles on a thread.
Just one last question. What do you think of, or this process has done to the process of impeachment moving forward?
I think it's made impeachment almost impossible. If this wasn't impeachable, getting a foreign power to undermine our democracy and help a president cheat, what could be the most chilling thing I heard was Alan Dershowitz saying, as long as a president doesn't commit an indictable crime, he can do anything he wants to cheat in an election so long as he believes his election is in the national interest. He could use his legal authority over declassification to share our nuclear secrets with Russia and China in return for their intervening in the election on his behalf. He could order his Justice Department to round up and arrest all of his political opponents. Dershowitz has said a president can order the investigation of anyone he wants. You know, this all began with Vladimir Putin intervening in the 2016 election and Trump welcoming it and exploiting it. It has ended with Alan Dershowitz turning America into a version of Russia and our American president, the clone to Vladimir Putin.